this is a zen space and also a safe space.
This is a very
so
safe space.
like
I have to do the thing where both my feet are up on my...
You can't do it.
Oh! I've never done this before. This was really unexpected.
Welcome back, listeners, to Can You Not? It's a new year, as you might imagine, unless you're listening to this in the future, in which case...
It might still be a new year. It might actually be like a new year.
It could be like 2018 right now.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm Joe. I do movie things.
I'm Amber. I do engineering things, I guess.
My name's Jesse, and I hate my job.
What do you do for a job, Jesse?
I'd rather not say.
I actually don't have any specific notes this time, other than the fact that my girlfriend Bryce, who co-hosted the one episode, says that she feels like we haven't lived up to our name until the last 3 episodes, because she feels like at first it was just kind of random things, and it kind of inadvertently turned into us complaining about things, which makes the Can You Not title more of a reality, I suppose.
I hope we haven't devolved.
I don't want to be just complaining about things. I mean, I think there's value in optimism. And
Nose goes.
Okay, everyone. So, the United Kingdom Parliament is set to have a debate about the Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump. Basically, they want him... how should I say this? They're debating his entry into the country. 600,000 signatures on a petition for his forceful, I guess, denial into the country. So they're trying to ban him.
Like, from coming into...
to the United Kingdom.
Cool.
And they go into details. Prime Minister David Cameron calls Trump's proposal for pausing Muslim immigration as divisive, unhelpful, and quite simply wrong. And that's according to ABC.com.
But especially since they have such a high Muslim population over there.
Yeah, I mean, they have a very high Muslim population. And this is just one of the worldly responses to Donald Trump and his policy.
You did air quotes there, you can't see it.
My thing is, does a country have the right to ban someone based off a signature threshold on a petition?
People can be banned from countries.
I mean, but like, has he really done anything wrong to United Kingdom? Like, if you're banned from a country, I feel like you have to be like either have caused some kind of major threat to society or have done wrong, like be a whistleblower or something like that. You know what I mean? There's like, for instance, rapper Tyler, the Creator, was banned from Australia for his earlier lyrics of perpetuating rape fantasy and supposed homophobia, which I could never find in the music. But he got banned from the country of Australia based off of that.
Wow.
So like, can you be banned for not doing anything to that country? Do you see what I mean? I find that very bizarre.
Maybe they kind of interpret it as like a threat to their ideologies.
But that's metaphorical, and I feel like metaphorical is not good enough grounds to do that.
Well, maybe they're just... I feel like a lot of people who are worried that Trump may actually be elected, like, people think that this is a real threat, and maybe they are trying to do this to... show their support one way or the other. Because, like it or not, the person elected to the United States office to be president has a big effect on a lot of, like, the world. So maybe they are... Like, Trump's ideas are insane, so maybe they are trying to, like, get on the other side and say, if you elect this person, it doesn't matter if he's an elected official, he will not be allowed over here. What would that do, like, to his ability to do certain things for his job?
Diplomacy and everything.
So maybe they're trying to just throw their chips in and say, this is not a thing we're okay with.
Or maybe throw their fish and chips in, as it were. But I think the big thing is that, again, the facial expressions, if only you could see. This is almost kind of saying if you become president, things are going to get a bit more testy, especially if the prime minister, who is known to be pretty conservative in a lot of different ways, if he's even calling it out, then you know that they're taking a stand of some sorts, and they're not afraid to take a stand this early on with even the potential of him being the president of the United States of America, which is a big deal.
It would be interesting to me, I don't know about to you guys, if the United Kingdom stated if Trump becomes president, we're gonna, basically just put a stop to like American goods coming over.
That'd be insane.
A reverse Tea Party.
Or or just a Tea Party in general. You know what I mean? But I find that super interesting. Or like closing trips like Americans can take over their flights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think they'd do
I don't
that.
think they go that far.
Yeah, I don't think they'd threaten that, but I feel like if Trump did enough stuff that, I don't know, hindered them or was just wrong in their opinion, that they might start enforcing similar things, but like that's kind of the same sort of stuff that Trump's trying to do.
I wonder if Trump ever got elected, which, whatever. How fast would it be for him to get impeached?
Well, I can't imagine he's even going to get elected, honestly. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
I passed a lot of Trump bumper stickers. I can't tell if they're serious or they're joking.
Ironic.
That'd be crazy.
And it was in Beechwood, of all places.
Huh.
The thing
Beechwood,
is,
Ohio. I'm like, what?
it's just so hard to tell with this. Like, we're at a point where we can't really... There's so many different avenues of collecting data, and there's so many people in the United States that it's hard to even get estimates, I think, to a point
Especially
anymore.
at this point, like, when we don't even have... The Republicans don't even know who's going to run yet. And I
Right.
guess the Democrats, the pool is smaller, but the Democrats don't know who's going to be running for them yet either.
Right.
So trying to guess who's going to be president at this point is just kind of like closing your eyes and spinning in a circle and seeing which ways the polls blow. Like, I don't know.
Which is terrifying.
And
Yeah.
the polls are always so erroneous. People want to, always pump up, well, this person dove ahead 30 points, and it's like, I don't think people understand how ineffective polling is when it comes to that kind of stuff.
And I've never been polled before. Like, where are they
yeah.
polling at?
Same
I've
here.
always kind of wondered.
A lot of them are held over telephone calls and like landline telephone calls, and like how many of us have a landline
Right.
anymore? A lot of them are done through just particular interest groups on particular either completely left or right leaning websites.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
of course they're going to show in favor of whoever they're rooting for. It's I just don't think it's, and there's so many ways to lie on that stuff. Or
I think I recently saw that something's going on where they're trying to prevent Trump from running, like even to become the candidate. I wish I remembered, but I don't. But
a lot of the traditional Republicans are sweating because they don't like how far he's misrepresented the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I think that he's representing them quite well, if you think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, my addendum to that was, or perhaps they dislike the fact that he represents them so well, depending on who you ask.
I don't think most people. I'm inclined to think that most people in the Republican Party aren't that extreme.
No.
I've never personally met anybody who supports Trump, besides my family. But I don't know. I haven't talked to them in a while. But extended family.
Well,
but
Amber's extended family. If
they're
you're
not
listening.
But your father will.
He's allowed. He understands.
He's our mascot.
No, he's not. Oh my god. But I don't remember what I was saying anymore. That's tragic.
You
haven't met anybody in real life who's actually interested in Trump. Whereas
I don't know. I'm just super skeptical that he would actually get elected, especially because most of the Republican Party. I don't think most of the Republican Party is that extreme. I feel like people may agree in some ways with a bunch of his things, but I was watching The Daily Show, and they did a thing recently where they got people who supported Trump together and were talking to them, and in a bunch of cases the reporter would be asking these people, like, how do you feel about building the wall? How do you feel about barring all Muslim people from coming in? And they'd go, well, it's a little extreme, but and they always prefaced it with that, and that makes me feel like they don't
fully get on board with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they're going to do what's most entertaining for television and take the things that they're trying to, edit together so that they have what they're looking for.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, and then another thing that I saw is I was on cracked.com, which is also comedy, I guess, but I think that they source really well. And they did an article about Trump, and one of the things that they pointed out was they linked to all these articles that were, I'm a real person who went to a Trump rally. Like, I am a normal person who is not extreme who went to a Trump rally just to see what was going on. And this consistent thing throughout all of these articles is that the people who supported Trump were afraid. They were afraid of Muslims. They were afraid of the government. They were afraid of black people. They were afraid of all this stuff. And I just think that's really, really interesting.
Well, fear
and
is
very
one of the
telling.
most powerful ways to unite people. First, anger, I would say, and then probably fear would be second.
Speaking about something that relates and doesn't relate, so there's this GIF going around of these two white rich women, front side courtside seats at a basketball game, and they were taunting LeBron James behind his back, and they're like, "Cry, baby," and LeBron just looks over his shoulder like, and the woman just has her hands up and drops them and is just frozen. 10 days later, she is suing him for millions of dollars.
What?
And quote, and here's her quote, "I was terrified for my life because he's a big black man."
What?
I remember seeing that. That's insane.
That's ludicrous.
And these are the type of people that support him. Because they literally, first of all, they're not around any black people, any Latin people, maybe a few Southeast and Northeast Asian people, but that's literally it.
She sounds like someone who was very money hungry after she got big and was very, like, oh no, the internet's making fun of me. How can I turn this around in my favor?
And it's funny, like, conservatives make fun of triggering, but, like, they are so triggered. Literally, they are so triggered by everything.
Right. Even if they don't use the word, yeah.
Well, everybody makes fun of triggered, but
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm triggered by your vibration.
I had it on vibration instead of our beautiful, melodious awakening.
Oh, no.
Good thing I better turn this up again. All right.
And that audience is how we throw shade without saying anything.
Oops. How do you stop this? Okay.
That's my every morning, waking up to Joe's friggin' alarm clock.
I was reading an article that MTV put out, and
Go continue. Go.
yes,
Continue.
but no, the
Credible source.
The thing that they were trying to do is give a name to the generation that is following the millennials, and it's a little early, obviously, because they're only factoring in people born from the year 2000 onward, but they were trying to kind of summarize, at least as of right now, what how this could be defined, because a lot of these titles that come from a particular characteristic of that generation, like the silent generation, the baby boomers. They all has some kind of time behind it. The latchkey generation for Generation X. So the title that they are tentatively coming up with for this future generation is the Founders.
What?
What?
Yes.
What does that
Why?
mean?
Okay, this is their defense, and
What?
I think it's an interesting one. I don't know if it's entirely accurate, but this is what they're saying. They're saying the millennials at like our generation and slightly older have shaken things up so much in terms of a lot of the
Movements,
the political
and such.
scene and the movements and just being in this whole kind of second civil rights era, right? And they're saying what this next generation is going to have to do, and already seems to kind of be doing, is making that the normal thing and kind of settling the dust and kind of like having this kind of renewal in a sense. Whereas a lot of generations from the past seem to be at odds with the previous generation. They said the founders, as they're calling them, this teenage generation so far, seems to be falling in line with a lot of what the millennials were doing. And so there's not this radical like returning of like, let's just flip over everything the millennials did. They're kind of founding the basis for what the millennials have already started. Some other names that they had come up with, because they did a poll of 1,000 of people this age, and some of the other names they had come up with were the Navigators, the Regenerators, the Builders, the Bridge Generation.
What?
But the Founders was most liked by the people that they polled.
They're
16.
trying really hard.
Okay. First of all, it's unclear to me if like we are millennials or we're Generation Y, because I've heard that like said both ways.
Yeah, what's the years on these?
I think typically how millennials are defined are born from 1980 to 2000.
No, because Generation Y is part of 1980, or X is part of 1980.
Maybe it's, let's see, because again, it's not like a defined thing. I think people roughly define it as like 1985 to 2000 or so, I think is how they roughly put it. Let me see. Anyway, what do you think of this while I fact check that?
It's too early to say anything because they didn't give us our generation a name until like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Millennials was...
No, I remember.
No.
I've seen articles from the
But it wasn't
90s
widely...
and stuff like that.
That was a guess, though.
And millennials isn't based on something that we're doing. Millennials is because
the millennium, the term of the millennium.
Yeah, so that just kind of stuck.
And
that doesn't describe what we did. It just describes when we were alive.
And it kind of downgrades us, to be honest. Because it's like when the millennium turned, supposedly that's when man became less active and we became more reliant on our technology, and that we're selfish.
So the Wikipedia defines it as from the early 80s to the early 2000s is what people generally refer to as the millennials.
It's too early to talk about what the founders may be.
Yeah, and I feel like they're trying really, really hard. Like, why? I guess it makes sense to give names to these groups.
But we don't know if they're going to carry on the stuff that we are about.
Yeah, they're 16 years old now,
and they acknowledge the fact that they're young. But you could see a lot of what our generation represents when we were 16.
What did we represent? What did we represent, Joe?
That's not true. I'll tell you what. It wasn't until I think for at least Americans in this Generation Y millennial, not until Occupy Wall Street, I started seeing huge change. To be honest, and even before that, the voting for Obama. Those were two very pinnacle moments where they were trying to figure out what would you call this generation.
Right.
Other than that, there was not significant events before that. It was a conservative wave, and people that were in the millennial generation were agreeing with them.
I've often heard when I read articles about people trying to evaluate, because again, people it's just kind of a fun thing for these sociologists to kind of toy around with, how will we be remembered, And a lot of them seem to focus on that we're very civic minded, we're very giving and very open, and we like things told, plain truths told straightforwardly, and that we prefer, even though we are somewhat wrapped up in our own lives and more individualized in terms of how we represent ourselves and how much we're surrounded by our own technology and how wrapped up we are within kind of representing ourselves at the same time. That's generally what I've heard is that's how, and again, very socially aware and stuff like that and willing to fact check is how I generally see our generation surmised as.
I've never seen it like that. I just see people complaining a lot.
Okay. I try to read things on both sides because I'd see lots of people complaining, but I see lots of people complimenting. But is that looking down upon that generation and their ability to define themselves? Because they're the ones who voted for it.
But we never voted for ours.
No.
That's not how that works.
It was here's the thing. We weren't old enough to vote for Obama, but we were old enough to spread out advocacy, right?
Yeah.
So my thing is, we were old enough to vote. Actually, it depends how the millennials are. Some were old enough to vote for Obama, but they just were old enough.
And if you're looking at if it is defined as starting in the early 80s, then probably a lot of people had the ability.
But not as much as the second Obama wave vote.
Right.
When he ran for a second term, there was a multitude of us voting at that point.
Right.
I don't like that whole statement where it was we did previous generations didn't rely upon other generations. I think we really do rely upon Generation X more than we've ever, honestly. And I don't like this idea that we're giving this next generation this whole namesake of being the ones that will carry on our tradition, because one, that's selfish on our part. True. Two, they're going to be different than us, and I hope they're different than us, honestly.
Right.
But the founders, and they aren't even old enough yet to do yet.
Yeah, it just seems really forced. I don't know, because as far as I know, every other naming of the generations has just been Like baby boomers. I don't think the baby boomers were like, we're the baby boomers. And no, that's not how that worked. Like it's a descriptor. It's not a badge that I put on my arm.
You know, the
like,
greatest generation to ever exist named them that. You see my point?
Right.
Yeah.
They probably named themselves in a sense.
But it's just, I don't know. I think it's kind of bizarre that they want labels. And I also think it is kind of strange that what... I don't know, I guess if they chose the name, if these teenagers who chose to be the founders are choosing to define themselves as is just falling into line behind us, that's kind of weird.
I don't like
because
that.
we weren't... our generation didn't fall into line. Like, I mean, we are building off of
Right.
who
Huge
came
stuff.
behind us.
Well,
But we didn't just kind of, like, jump in the line and follow them, like, in exactly what they're
Right.
doing.
No.
Well, part of it too. Reading further on the article, they were talking about what does define them differently so far from what can be observed, and one of the things that they mentioned is that basically they've grown up in, whereas we got the rug pulled out under us from our parents being like, hey, we're setting up this whole economic collapse in a sense, right? Like
Right.
the older
Everything's going to be great,
Our
go to
parents
college,
really
and then
did
yank it
screw us
out.
over. Yeah, they
Right.
did screw us over.
So they're saying the founders so far tend to be more conservative economically than any generation at that age before, because they've seen their parents and they've seen their grandparents struggle with money, and they've grown up with that all their lives, so they just think of it as a normal thing.
Well, that's troublesome in a sense if they're more conservative. 'cause
Economically.
Economically speaking.
Well, what is economically? What do you
well,
mean?
To me, it's like
Like they're
less.
less willing to spend money on frivolity. Or
But see, that doesn't seem bad to me. Like, being less, like, not going out to eat as much.
Well, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different than like. So you're saying personal expenses, because if you say economically, that's different, because then you're talking government spending, you're talking government programs.
Oh, yeah, well, more...
Do you
yeah,
see
more,
what I mean?
More like
personal expenditures, and then I'm
personal
okay with.
responsibility in a sense, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense to me then. I could talk about that for all day.
I know, I
Yeah.
really want
That
to
was a good
talk about that
topic.
more.
Yeah.
We could add another 3 minutes since we were cut off.
We could just cut into Amber's topic. And...
If you want.
Okay.
No, I'm just
Go
kidding.
ahead, Amber.
Okay, so mine isn't quite as interesting, I don't think. But recently McDonald's opened up a new shop in Hong Kong. Oh, I wish I had my phone.
Oh,
I'm gonna look up.
saw
I don't
this.
remember. It's like called like
McDonald's Next. I think is what
Next,
it is.
that's what it is. McDonald's Next, and it's this kind of like Chipotle style thing going on where you go in, there's a screen that you order at, and you tell them exactly what you want, and they have like couscous and quinoa and asparagus and all this stuff, and you can build your own burger, and you can build salads, and they serve it to you and then they make it. You can watch them make it. I guess it's behind a big like glass window. You don't actually talk to the people making your food because you place your order on the screen, and then you can watch them make it, and then they serve it to you on like this fancy like wooden carving board type thing, and they give it, and your fries come in like a metal basket, and it's all very fancy. And it's all very fancy, especially when I think of McDonald's. I think of just wads of
Bottom of the
grease stuck to plastic. Like,
Whoa.
and I think that's kind of interesting. And one of the reasons that I'm assuming that they're doing it is because McDonald's brand is kind of old and has
And
a
they're
bad,
losing.
and has a really bad rep. But another reason that they're doing it that I've heard is that in other countries, the minimum wage is going up. But McDonald's doesn't want to like not have shops there, so instead of fighting the minimum wage, what they're trying to do is hire fewer people. So with a screen that you order
I
on,
didn't
you don't
think
have to
about
have
that.
front people anymore, and you just have chefs.
That's not good.
So I just, and on top of that, I also just think it's very interesting that Grease Bomb McDonald's is trying to turn into like Chipotle now, and it's all very interesting.
I think one reason this is in Taiwan, right? If I remember
Hong
correctly?
Kong.
Hong Kong. Okay, yeah. I know in that area of the world that McDonald's is not quite seen as bottom of the barrel as we expect it here, where it's just like in every single town. It's a little bit more.
There's probably more McDonald's in my town than churches. Like,
I mean, it's not like it's like fine dining, but from what I understand, like it's like kind of the cool place you would go to do homework and hang out with friends and that
And
kind
take
of thing.
selfies with fries in your hand.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it's already a good place to start doing it because they don't have quite the shoddy image that they already have over here established.
That's fair.
Which kind of backfired because in the 90s, McDonald's was all about that over here. They didn't care because they were just all about saying, hey, we're going to give you the cheapest price, and hey, we're going to give you the food that you want. But then as people became more health conscious and much more critical of what McDonald's was doing, its reputation fell. And so I think it's if they're going to try something like that over here, I think they're going to have a much harder uphill battle.
Yeah, especially since over here they're going to have so much problems trying to convince people. Like, if they can get it rolling, it will probably take over just like everything else McDonald's takes over. But rebranding, I was trying to wrap my head around a healthy McDonald's, and it just, what?
Even with their redo that they did probably about 10 years ago.
With the cafe.
The cafe and the salads.
It was not effective.
It still seems tacky to me.
It wasn't effective.
It's even weirder when you go into one McDonald's and it's like, it's kind of trying to be like the McDonald's coffee place, and you go into another one and it's still like tiles and players and the creepy clown statue sitting on a bench.
They shot themselves in the foot because they expanded so fast and so rapidly. It's almost impossible to do a unanimous brand switch. And that's their problem. So Chipotle is so successful because they took advantage of being in a region like the Southwest, went from Colorado, expanded out, and for the most part, they're pretty domestic. And that's what the key to their success has been. When they want to do some kind of shift to the menu, like, I don't know how they do this. Do they get their meats from local farming?
Chipotle, yeah. Although they've gotten into a lot of trouble
They've
recently.
gotten a lot of trouble, but it was easy for them to brand switch that way.
Yeah.
Because they were so domestic and they calculated where they were going to be in each state.
Well, now this creates an interesting dilemma because now Chipotle is the one who's going to have to brand switch in a sense because they literally had 8 outbreaks in the past 4 months, I believe it was.
Of E. coli.
Of not only E. coli, but various diseases due to the local farming that they were getting a lot of it from. And I'm a fan of local businesses, and I'm a fan of being able to buy local if that's your choice. Like, I wouldn't say shut it down, but for a major food chain like that, they need to follow regulations, and they're finally starting to realize that because they can't afford to do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the McDonald's thing. I'm trying to imagine the people who normally purchase food at Chipotle are a lot different from the people who normally purchase food from McDonald's. Like,
100%.
I'll still eat it. Yeah, I'll still eat at Chipotle, but I don't eat at McDonald's anymore. Obviously, a big part of that is because I don't eat meat anymore. But I'm just trying to imagine. I really can't envision if a new McDonald's opened up like downtown. I don't think people would go there.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. McDonald's owns Chipotle, which is funny that we're contrasting them.
Does it?
Yes.
Or is it like the parent company that owns them both? Or
I believe McDonald's owns Chipotle.
Really?
They bought them in I don't know if it was 2006 or 2008, something like that.
I would have not known that if that's the case.
Can we get a fact check?
Founded by Steve Ells in 1993, Chipotle had 16 restaurants all in Colorado, and McDonald's Corporation became a major investor in 1998. By the time McDonald's fully divested itself from Chipotle in 2006, the chain had grown. So
it did at one time
get owned,
but it's funny that we're contrasting them too.
Yeah.
A lot of these McDonald's, for the I would say a good half of them are in rural areas or in urban inner city.
True.
So here's my problem: if you're gonna brand switch like this, one, these people won't be able to afford your menu items, so you're screwing over a lot of people that don't have the resources. 2, you're going to be taking jobs away from them.
Right.
That I have a problem with, and I guarantee they're going to hire outside of the community because now you're going to have these upscale chefing positions where many of them do not have the training to fulfill those positions.
Right.
And then a big part of it too was cutting down on employees anyway.
Exactly.
With the screens and
Exactly.
just cutting down the number of employees that they have to have. So
it's not going to happen. It wouldn't be successful here.
I think one thing that would help the branding too, because I read an article about that as well, and if they had a different logo maybe, when I see the double arches, that just instantly recalls everything that I already have established in my head about McDonald's. If they did something maybe that was a little bit more, I don't know, if they made it more retro or did something different with it's basically the same logo essentially, but with next and futuristic font underneath.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. I think An interesting thing that I'm just thinking ahead to that isn't as groundbreaking is you can tell exactly when a McDonald's was built just by looking at it. They're the ones that actually have the giant architectural yellow arches that go up over the shop, and like I said, they're the ones with when Ronald McDonald was a big thing and he was plastered all over everything, and then the more recent ones that are trying to turn into a cafe. So you can go into and then the next way, the founder generation McDonald's is gonna try and be this like
super chic.
Yeah, this chic metal
Weird.
in internal design. It's
Industrial design.
Industrial design.
What the heck?
Yeah.
What's interesting too is that like and it's interesting to see the evolution of something like McDonald's as loathed and as beloved as it is, depending on who you ask. Like, even just the fact that I remember hearing about when they were legally not allowed to put burgers aimed at kids in their commercials anymore. That's why whenever you see a kids commercial for McDonald's, it always features the chicken nuggets or the apples.
French fries.
Yeah, they legally cannot add burgers. They can't mention burgers.
Well, I bet with advertising, this new thing would probably give them a lot more options.
That's true. That's a good
Really,
point.
McDonald's is doing all kinds of stuff right now. They just made it so you can get mozzarella sticks. I heard that they were going to try and do pasta soon. Like,
It's very bizarre to me.
It seems like they're just kind of reaching out in every direction they can find and trying to get people to buy.
I mean, I know they already have cultural items available just in certain areas. Like, I know in the South they do grits is a big thing. And, and then I know they have different options in Europe, like everywhere.
Other countries.
In like Southeast Asia, primarily I think Nepal and India, they don't use cow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think they use lamb and such, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's super bizarre watching this huge, mega giant corporation sort of grappling. Yeah.
I love it, actually, to be honest.
And it's so unique. Like, who else could you watch something develop like this?
Right. Especially since we said, like, in the 90s, like, McDonald's was king. Like, it literally had the biggest stronghold of, like, any company in the whole country.
I don't actually know how they're doing economically right now. It'd be interesting to look into that.
They're not doing as well, and I know Wendy's has more locations than them now. And
Wendy's,
Subway, too, I think.
Subway has the most locations in the world, actually.
Wow, really?
Supposedly, yes.
Huh. Yeah.
Which, it just shows you, like, people are just moving away from it.
Yeah.
They want to be healthier, which is just like...
Everybody, the obesity exploded, and everybody's like, oh no, and trying to get back again.
Like, I don't want diabetes, type 2.
And then the reverse pendulum swing of that is that now all these companies feel like they have to have all these health craze things that have no actual scientific, founding behind it. You know, a lot of the, like, well, we don't have GMOs, and we don't have, we're gluten-free, and all this stuff.
Yeah, organic diet.
Right.
It's so weird. Like, what a weird paradigm shift. Because, I mean, I remember, like, one of my things was if I did well in school, I would be going to McDonald's to
that was always a treat for us.
To get a milkshake and fries.
Right.
Because I've never eaten a burger, fun fact. But...
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So, tangent. So, no one would expect that, right?
No.
That's
so,
insane.
Yeah, I accidentally got a burger once, and my mom's like, you can try it if you want. And my mom was like a hardcore vegetarian at that time. And I was like raised vegetarian, and I'm like, I can't eat this. And she's like, just give it a bite. I ate one bite, my jaw got numb, and I puked it out.
Oh.
It was so gross to me. And ever since then, I've never had a burger.
It's probably better. I don't think I was a carnivore either.
Carnivores.
Even when I was like 5, I would get my Subway sandwiches without meat on them.
I never liked meat that much myself in a lot of things, but yeah, even I loved McDonald's cheeseburgers when I was little because, again, like, that was like the treat for us. Like
Wendy's bacon cheeseburger.
That was Amber's head.
Anyway.
Wow.
So, what did we learn today?
Basically, Donald Trump can only get tea and crumpets from his Trump Towers.
Tea and trumpets, if you will. Sorry, that was my second terrible.
Did you say
pun for the
trumpets?
episode. Yes.
Literally, you changed it from a word to another word that doesn't even coincide
That
with
doesn't
the word,
count.
because then he would be literally eating an instrument.
You might.
It's the idea of taking his last name and making it a word from a word
Can you
that's not an
imagine-
actual word.
Can you imagine Donald Trump just like chewing on a trumpet? Just
Plus, I know I'm only allotted one terrible pun per podcast, if that. So, and I
we have to cut your hand off
that.
now.
I learned that the founders might become a thing. Maybe we'll come up with a different name for it. But for now, I'm cool with calling them that, especially if that's what they want to be called.
They can be the founders if they want with this new McDonald's. Founders McDonald's. I learned about Founders McDonald's today.
You can listen to us at soundcloud.com/CYN podcast or on iTunes at Can You Not? Under the podcast category. You can find me on Twitter at POGIE_Joe.
At Amba J. It's at AMBAHJAY.
You can find me on multiple socials. One is on Instagram, Jesse Paradise, JESSEPARADICE, and also on Twitter at BLVCKCELTIC Black Celtic. Yes!
You can also find me on Snapchat at Amber though, if you want my awesome snaps of my roommate and my cat. It's pretty great.
You all want that in your life.
You don't know how much you want that in your life.
But can you not?
Can you not?
Cool. Can you not, though? Let your soul. Okay, let's just. Okay, you're gonna use that in the beginning. I'm mad.